All right, so we are on. Sensei Mish, welcome to DojoCast. I'm sitting here with Gregg Townsley. He is a martial artist. He's an author.
Wow.
He works in hospital security like me.
We won't mention our hospitals, though, right? That's got to be the rule.
Yeah, no
so
names. No names. Right. No, that's totally understood.
Right.
No
teachers' names.
No.
No girlfriends' names.
Exactly.
No. Okay.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah. So, protect the innocent.
The innocent, absolutely.
Yeah. Right on. So, thank you for tuning in. If you're not a subscriber already, please hit the subscribe button. And if you want to know anytime, one of the DojoCast episodes airs, or Kyusho Corner, which is going to be coming up soon for season 5, and then of course my Mondays at Sensei Mish. Just hit that notice, the little bell down there, and you'll be notified. So,
cool.
We've been sitting here talking for a little bit.
We have. I love your podcast, man. I mean, actually, I have like favorite parts of it and other parts that I don't watch.
Yeah.
But I'm digging the series that you're doing with martial artists or school owners or whatever. The dojo thing.
I'll have to admit, I was not a podcast or audio person for a long time.
Right.
And then I find I don't have a lot of time to read. And my wife is a big audiobook person. Because I always joke, I buy her books and they just sit on shelves. She never reads them.
Right.
But she'll go to the library and get the audiobook.
She commutes, is that why?
Just
while she's gardening?
While
she's bathing.
She doesn't garden. As if you ask her mother, she has a black thumb. But my
so
wife,
to speak.
Yes. Well, yeah, actually, literally.
So,
it's more brown, but
okay.
But she likes to kill plants. But no, she's a crafter.
Okay.
When she also is a volleyball coach, so she's also en route to tournaments and all that kind of stuff. So it just gives her time to, she got through, there's a book that I highly suggest, if nobody has read it, got to read it. Start With Why by Simon Sinek.
Okay.
She listened to that entire thing. I think it's like a 7-hour listen, while painting our living room after we remodeled our
that's
room.
cool.
So she's, it kind of really started with that, because it was one of those where she had bought the book, got the audio, and then I think she got the audio anyway, just on Audible. And so I was like, she's like, "Oh, you got to listen to this." And I was like, "Okay." So I listened to it.
Right.
And I was like, "Wait a minute. I'm doing all these things. I don't really have a lot of time to read, but I can still get the story."
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Okay, well, I'll just get these books." So I'm a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, and so I've gotten some of his books, and he actually does the reading for his books.
Right.
And so he goes off script, which is awesome, because I just like the way he riffs. So I got those, and then it just kind of built and built and built. Steve Perry, a local writer, he's one of my favorite writers.
Good. So you're into it now.
Hopefully going to be on the podcast as long as we, schedule time. There's some more recent books that I've purchased, and I'm sorry, Steve, I never actually read them.
Or purchased them. You just borrowed them from the library.
But I purchased them, but I was like, I like his stories, because I'm a big Matador fan. He's the Matador series author.
Okay.
But
I don't know.
That's okay.
Sorry.
So I just started listening to that. And then, of course, when I was remodeling the dojo, I downloaded.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I always wanted to read, what's the book? Princess of Mars, the John Carter series.
Oh man.
We'll
come together probably on martial arts books that we really like.
Yeah. But it's science fiction. I'm a science geek and sci-fi geek, and Bram Frank. That series inspired a lot of what he does with blades and knives and swords and all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And so he was always saying, he's not always saying this, but he has said this. I've heard him say it, that he always wanted to make, at one point, the John Carter series a required read for his students. Just because, to kind of show the influence that it had on his life.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, shoot, I've got a lot of work ahead of me. So I think I got 7 books for $5 on Audible, and now I actually want to sit down and read the words, because for me, I was like, wow, what a great story. Disney screwed it up. Don't ever watch the Disney movie. It sucks. But so that really got me into the audio, the audio portion.
And that's what brings you into this.
And then I started listening to Joe Rogan, and not just because of Joe Rogan, but because of some of the people that he had on.
Podcast, yes.
And I was like, well, that's, and he's a martial artist.
Right.
And he said he started his podcast just hanging out with his comedy buddies, and then it just kind of started getting into larger stuff. And I was like, well, I want to, I even though I sometimes say that I don't like people, I lie. I really am very interested in humanity, and I don't know where that comes from.
I got that point on, was it your character little blurb or whatever the one was, is I really don't like people, and I'm frank, I'm just right up front and I'll tell you, listen, I don't like you, man. I'm like, you're a moron, or whatever your language was, I'm like, yeah, that's not my read of this guy. I mean, there's always going to be a hatred of the common
I think,
swim in.
I think in general, like, that when I was talking about that was a specific.
Let me show you how to break an arm, and that's your business. And so you've got to start with not liking arms,
right?
And whatever's attached to them.
Exactly.
I get it.
Exactly.
I totally get it. Yeah.
So I kind of came into this, and I was like, oh, okay, well. So eventually, all my stuff, at least the stuff where there's not a lot of visual going on, will make it to audio. But I was like, hey, I got a YouTube channel. I'll just start filming it and sit down with
let me
local.
Tell you what, let me pay you some compliment. Because one of my friends asked me, why do you watch this guy? Which I thought was interesting. Why do you watch this guy? And he's not a martial artist, and he's kind of simple in terms of his view of violence. And, it's like fist to face over and over and over again, and that'll accomplish it. You don't need all this other stuff,
Right.
That's his point of view. Why do you watch this guy? I said, one of the reasons I watch what Mish does is because he's a really good interviewer. And I believe that. No, I'm serious. I'm not trying to shine you here.
No, I think
one of the things I liked in my previous profession, my only professional contribution to the world when I had one, was interviewing. So I would invite people up, unformed, unscripted, and just chat with them because I believed there was something redemptive, something valuable inside of them that they might actually blurt out.
Right.
And you do that, and you do it really, really well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. And of course, starting with that comfortableness, my old friend Danny Anderson.
I'm hoping you like me. Okay. I'm just hoping you like me because you made that point.
I do like you.
Greg. Okay, good.
I do like you.
Good.
Yeah.
Because Mish will tell you if he doesn't like you, he'll just tell you that.
Well, it has to come up. I don't want to be mean. So I'm not just going to come out of the blue and just be like, you know what? I don't like you. Okay. No, it has to be like.
And you do it with a finger as well? Oh my gosh! I mean, that's
it depends.
It's not even a thumb.
It all depends on the situation.
Okay.
But starting with people I know, I
sure
started with Dan Anderson, and because he was all about it. He was like, "Oh yeah, sure, no problem," because he's always been very supportive.
An innovator.
Obviously.
Yes. Yeah. Amazing that we live this close to Dan.
And then I just started reaching, I've known Stan for years. Right. And so, I just started reaching out to the people I know.
Right.
And that I'm comfortable with. And like in episode 4.
Wow.
Shannon Spahan.
Right.
Okay.
Don't know him, but I follow his stuff. Hi, Facebook friend, Shannon.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
So he and I have met at seminars.
Right.
But we have never trained. We're not BFFs. We don't get together on a regular basis. So he was actually the first guy where I was like, I know this guy, but I don't know this guy. And when I reached out to say, hey, let's sit down and talk martial arts, he was like, sure.
Yeah.
And we had a great conversation.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of the comments, and please comment, I want feedback. One of the comments we got, I think it said it was, what a great, honest conversation.
Nice.
I was like, wow.
That sounds like a guy I would like to know.
Yeah, what a great comment on that. And it was. And, I really like Shannon, and it was a good chance to get to know him. And just like you, I've been out to do training with the guys that you work with.
Right.
And we're Facebook friends, so we
Right.
kind of do the whole site,
Sure.
the social media stalking.
Yep.
But this is another great way for me to sit down with you,
Yeah,
and
totally.
learn more about you and talk
Yeah.
martial arts and just to get to know people.
Yeah.
And I can speculate where that interest for humanity comes from. My dad's an anthropologist or
Oh, wow.
professor of anthropology, retired.
Where was he?
He was he was down in Humboldt State University for many years.
Were you California? Is that
That was
back in the day?
I was born in Portland, but I spent my first 5 years in Trinidad, California, and then
wow.
I came up here. I've been in Portland and now Vancouver for.
Shame it wasn't like the last 5 years, so you could say I was a surfer. I lived on the beach. I had all the babes, But instead, it's your first 5 years.
Yeah, my first 5 years.
Yeah,
So I
it's
really
like
didn't
nothing,
know it.
is it?
Nothing.
Yeah,
I didn't.
it's nothing. Yeah.
So, well, there's really not a lot of surfing down there, at
But
least where Humboldt County is. Just
Right.
a lot of weed.
So, weed. Well, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So you were saying your dad's an anthropologist.
Yeah. So and then he retired from University of Connecticut.
Right.
So, but anthropology is a study of culture and the study
Right.
of people.
Right.
And I don't know if that's a genetic thing or just kind of because
Sure.
in general, I have a fear that humanity is going down the toilet, but there are those good people in the world, and I'm interested in those good people and how they can make a difference to make our world a better place.
I'd like to think it's going to be a better place. My guess is it's going to be better and worse and better and worse and better and worse. When I was in college in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a paper I had this great future studies guy.
Okay.
And he put me onto the concept of is history linear, which was my professional perspective. I spent some time in ministry. I spent some time owning martial arts studios. I spent some time now in hospital security. People say I have no focus, but I mean, but there's solid numbers of years there. So I just like to think I'm one of those rare human beings who gets to do a handful of things.
Yeah.
So what was I saying? Anyway, so it was like linear. Is it linear or is it circular? And I came to the belief that there's no Make America Great, man. It's again. I mean, well, actually, the again part is truthful.
Yeah, I would.
Over
I'd
and
agree with
over
that.
again.
Yeah.
And there are good people and there are bad people, and I've been both. And I have a preference to be a good person, but so is our culture and so is everything else.
Well, I don't think anybody is perfect. I mean, we're always learning, and that would be boring.
Yeah,
that would be boring.
I don't know your imperfections, and I'm trusting that you won't share those here.
Well, as I've gotten older, and as I've made mistakes and kind of honed myself, and I just if I have mistakes, I'll own it. I'll own them. You know.
Right.
And I was listening to. I was listening to an episode, Joe Rogan and Ben Shapiro, and Ben had said that he actually has a list because he's been doing whatever he's been doing for so long. He actually has a list of the stupid things that he said.
Oh, wow.
And so,
Wouldn't that be awful?
And I don't know if this is like a physical list. I don't know.
Sure. Right.
But he talked about how he's like, I started when I was 17 and I said some really stupid things.
Right.
And, I could look back and go, yeah, no, I agree. That was stupid. Or I could be like, yeah, no, I still have that view. Probably not the best way I could have phrased it.
Yeah.
But, and I was like, oh, it would be interesting if everybody kind of had that thought that, it's, where you just have that list of, yes, I've been stupid because we've all been young.
Right.
It's
not just young. You're still young. It has nothing to do with just young. But that's a good place to start.
But we've all been, let's not use the word young. We have all been inexperienced in some part of our life.
See, you're still holding on to the thought that we all get better and better.
But
martial arts believes that we'll all get better. If we practice, we'll be the perfect human being until some guy with ham-sized fists beats our brains in. Where's your Kyosho then? Where's your pressure point polka dot stuff going to go? You're like pushing the button there, and you got Mike Tyson there just wailing on you.
There's a weakness in everybody.
Well, I'm sure.
You just got
go for the knees.
You
right?
just got to find it.
Okay, I'm going to poke your eyes out. My point, anyway, is that we think we're going to get better, and I don't know that we get better. I mean, I haven't totally abandoned this for the hopelessness,
right.
That some people kind of like the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism. I'm not sure I'm totally there, but will you be better as a broadcaster? My guess is, and you're good now. I think you're really good now. You'll have some good shows and some bad shows.
Oh yeah.
This will be one of the good shows.
Yeah.
And as a martial artist, we hope the same thing. I mean,
Right.
At my hospital, I met a guy, big guy, and I recognized the jail tats because we profile, as you were honest on one of your podcasts. We profile.
We do profile.
And it's important that we profile, and we should do more of that, I think, in our security concerns, whether they be in airports or otherwise. And that's an unpopular point of view. But I saw the jail tats, and he was acting in all of his assholery.
Right.
It was going to be a problem. And so I keyed my mic and I called my partner over. And when my partner came in, who thought he was hiding behind the wall, but really, seriously, I said we're gonna get beat up really badly tonight. And he's like looking at me, and he sees that I've unsnapped my capsin, my spray, which I've never used, never been a big fan of. But nonetheless, because I know I'm going down. This guy is huge. I mean, he's huge. And he's not just like big, huge. He's just, I kind of welcomed him, to the hospital and touched his tricep and realized I was talking to a man of steel.
Right.
So at some point, after the doctors and after the nurses had all ramped him up, thank you very much for being professionals that you are, or sometimes are. After they had ramped him up and then left him to me, little old me, 67-year-old Gregg Townsley, standing there in the back hallway next to all these machines that are going to be bashed on my head at some point, Thank you very much. I'm thinking, this guy is going to do us damage. So I touch him. And so when we finally do the final warning to each other, and I'm saying, look, I'm not going to get in your way, man. You're just going to step out of here. There are going to be police outside. I hope that's okay with you. He says, I don't care about the police. And he's a whole lot of invective and all that, And I said, that's great. It's, as long as you don't hurt anybody. I said, you hurt one of my nurses. And I tried to, from the visceral, the gut, just tried to get as mean a biker face as I could get, which, I used to have like shoulder length hair and it was easier, but this was in my short hair phase.
Right.
This phase.
Yeah.
So it wasn't coming off. He wasn't even looking at me, man.
Right.
He wasn't even looking at me. I say to him, well, you go after one of my nurses. And I use some language that we won't use here on your podcast. But I talk about taking a 2-finger spear and just reaching the end of his eyeball, and touching his brain, and how I'm gonna blind him, etc. Didn't matter at all. Didn't matter at all. It was just that was my future staring me in the face.
Yeah.
So I made sure that my shoes moved backwards, and I tried to keep me in between me and the nurses that I cared about.
Yeah.
I mean, I care about them all.
Right.
That's my job. And fortunately, nothing happened. If something had happened that day, he might have been blinded.
Right.
Maybe.
Well, and you
in my perfection, because I have a really good 2-finger poke. I've practiced with the tennis ball in the garage.
There you
for
go.
years. Absolutely.
Yeah, there, especially in our profession, there's, I don't know if you experience this. We get called guards a lot, security guard.
I hate that, but I don't hate it a lot. But I hate it.
And it's been less nitpicky for me. I'm just like, whatever.
Right. Because they don't know.
Yeah. But when we deal with other humans like we do, that's really an officer's job. We get extra training on de-escalation and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we're not sitting in a guard shack.
Yeah, we're not watching dirt.
Right.
Right. And even if we are assigned to watch another human, it's still not dirt. We're just
good for you. They
making
had
sure
mothers
that
and fathers and just like us.
Yeah. And so we are, we're watching that person, keeping them safe, and keeping them from leaving the hospital and all that kind of stuff. So that's an officer's job. But it's when you get those really difficult people, where you make that physical touch and you're like, shit.
Right. Oh, we can say that word.
Yeah,
okay.
we can say that.
Okay.
We can say that word.
Got it. Right.
When we were just dealing a couple weekends ago with this guy. He's, he was DHS was called on him. He came in with his
wow.
kid. And
Yeah.
of course it's like, okay, well now you have to leave. And he's like, I'm not leaving without the kid. And it's like, well, the mother's here, the DHS is here, blah, blah, blah. And so we're just trying to talk him out.
Right.
And things politically have changed where I work. So we can't do the,
right.
There are rules. Well, there's always been rules for arrest, but
absolutely. But what's the deal with that?
Yeah.
That things have changed the way they have. Anyway, go ahead.
So
please.
now it's to the point where they have to be violent. They can't passively disruptive of just like, screw you, I'm not leaving.
Right.
Before we could be like, it's like we'd go through the process of, asking them to leave,
right.
warning them to leave, telling they're trespassed, them still not, okay, and now you're being arrested for trespass. We can't even do that. They have to be violent.
I'm not even allowed to call the police anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, what's that about, Okay, not allowed is maybe an overstatement, but I'm not supposed to call the police. I'm supposed to hand them a bus pass now.
Yeah.
And that's even if you're physical with me. Well, I mean, if you're physical with me, it's good night, and I'll find another job afterwards. I mean, it's awful, man.
I get empathy, and I understand.
I'm a master.
But
yes.
we have to keep people have to be accountable for their actions, and we are just, as a society, I think we're just not allowing them to do that. We're not. We're making it too soft.
We make choices in our profession. I guess it's a profession. In our job, at least, we make choices that endanger us every day. We step in when we shouldn't step in, We don't strike when we should strike, because we're trying to practice a softer me, because that's what they want from us. Not that they reward us for that. Not that there is big money in being a compassionate human being, but in large part, I think, because these individuals represent profits. Some of them don't. They're liabilities in terms of the profit sector,
Right.
And I mean, I just blew my knee out. I mean, I just had 40% of my meniscus taken out.
Oh, wow.
Because I chased a psych patient that a doctor said he's not to leave. So he zigs, I zag, I splatter. I got 3 nurses behind me and a doc saying, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, God, I'm just so upset that I've failed at this moment.
Right.
It was a simple deal, and the guy got by me.
Right.
He passed me. Wow, this is too much. And so the result of that is okay, so they fix it.
Right.
Yeah, like a meniscectomy is fixing something.
Right.
Doesn't that mean ectomy, like taking out,
Mm-hmm.
So my kids are all like, well, you can still play basketball. There are plenty of people who play basketball. Well, not at my age, they're not. It's a bad thing. The result is I get this guy. I'm way off campus because this doctor said, I shouldn't be saying all this. This doctor says, don't let this guy leave. I'm off campus. My then partner says to me, we're off campus. I'm like, I don't care. I'm bringing him back. He's not supposed to leave, So the lack of clarity in our policies, the lack of self-critical awareness as to where our boundaries are, because he touched me, didn't touch me. He's supposed to leave. He's not supposed to leave. I'm bigger than I think I am. But gee, he could be some kind of wushu master or something like that that I don't know about. We're constantly in danger. And in my case now, so I have a lasting injury. That's a partial disability, whatever that means at my age, Those are not things that we should be suffering at $20-something an hour.
Right.
Or less. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
Total nonsense.
But
you guys now have like tasers and whiz bangs.
We do, and we have used them.
Right.
But those are even. We still kind of follow the guidelines of the Ninth Circuit Court.
Of course.
So there's got to be that.
Yeah.
But even with the Joint Commission and how the hospitals are funded and organized, even OC is ruled. It has to be. It can't be passive. It has to be that violent, like last resort tool.
Right.
So
has to be self-defense. What's the ORS on that? Self-defense, me or someone else?
I don't remember the number, but so it's and we just had a case where a patient on a hold in Oregon, it's called a notice of mental illness, an NMI.
Okay.
Leaves the hospital. We did not catch him on property,
right?
But we found, we since we weren't able to put hands on him on property, we did have eyes on him, and then because he was wanted by the police,
they did a welfare check.
Well,
so to speak.
We did not know this at the time, but the actual the computer system for the police was down. So we called this and say, okay, here's the guy's name, because we had authorization to give that out.
Sure.
And this is where he is, and they couldn't run a background check of why we were saying, hey, you guys need to come and get this guy.
Right.
He ends up in the middle of I-84.
Wow. I wonder if it's the same guy.
I don't know.
Because my guy the week later escapes the secure transport people.
Oh my gosh.
In the middle of some major highway and is running down the highway.
Gosh.
Without pants on or something.
Yeah. So it was a good result, but it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I'm in charge that day and it's off property.
Yeah.
Even talking to my manager, he's like, well, why didn't you put cuffs on him? I was like, well, he's off property.
Yeah,
I said, yes, my first instinct was to pull him out of the dumpster that he was hiding in and put him in the back of our patrol car and bring him back to the hospital. But
you can't do that.
You can't do that.
No. And
so it's like, okay, because what is, even if we are thinking what's the safest for this person.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, he was under observation for drug abuse. So if he's out in the wilderness, he might die.
Sure.
So, and doctors have said, hey, this guy is either a danger to himself or others. So
but still,
we have to take care of him.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, well, what's the best way?
Right.
Well,
he
to me,
swung
yes,
at you.
The best way is to pull him out of the dumpster, put him back in handcuffs, bring him back to the.
Did you do that?
No. We stayed hands off the entire time.
And that was
even when he got into the middle of the freeway, one of my, gotta love him, one of my crazy Russian officers is follows him out there, and when traffic slowed down enough, because the guy was sitting middle lane of 84 West.
Wow.
And so he's like, he talked him back and sat with him on the shoulder until police got there.
Yeah.
So, but still, I mean, it's like, you don't do that working for a contract security company, just, roaming patrols or sit and watch
you're not
dirt.
contract, right?
No,
okay.
we are
I don't want to work
property of the hospital.
Yeah. Right.
So,
same.
But that's what you get. I mean, and that's extreme. I mean, we don't get that. That's like one of those stories.
It's not an everyday thing.
It's one of those stories I told one of our
it's not a manual.
one of our leaders at a leadership huddle, and they're like, "Say what?"
Right.
And I was like, it's one of those things you just can't make up.
Yeah.
But it did happen.
Right.
But it doesn't happen all the time, and that's the extreme.
Yeah.
But still, that's part of our reality.
I told my first boss, because at the time I was doing an interim pastorate at a UCC church right across from Pacific University, and he said, we need somebody to stand out in the parking lot, and I don't know what it was, but we were contracted by the rental property people. And I said, well, that sounds like a pleasant thing. I mean, it was like fall, and I had some dead time. So I was running a dojo in Sherwood. I was working as an interim pastor because at like my own, I'm not a church guy now, but I was then at my own church, and he invites me to stand outside. So I'm there, and he says, well, how long would you stay? Because he thought I was like a coup to get. I don't know. He thought like, well, you're like a professional empath, and then you have a dojo. So like, I'm sure you could just beat the crap out of anybody. And I'm like, yeah, well, of course I can, absolutely. He says, how long will you stay? And I said, I'll stay as long as the stories are good. And I have, because I get a good story probably every week. I mean, just something crazy. They're not all violent. Some of them are just like, wow, that was bizarre, Yeah. And then it makes it into a book. I mean, not the name. I mean, that's not a pathway that we can share those kind of identities and so on.
Right.
But the situation is like something I never would have experienced in a normal job, like your likely female upline.
Right.
And I say likely female upline because it seems like a very female environment. Hospitals.
Right.
Very conservative female environment in itself. That's unique, but still. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I won't be going, not in our environment anyway. So
yeah, in fact, they've it was well received, the tasers, by staff.
You still have it?
Yeah,
and it's okay to have.
It's still okay to have.
They're okay with it. I mean, there's no pressure to get rid of them.
Let's just say this: they're so.
This is why it was big enough. I wish I had a taser.
Yeah,
I would have felt better.
The hospital I work at, supports it. There are other hospitals in the area that do not.
Okay,
and that's why they don't carry them there. And there were plans to.
The other hospitals in the system do not.
There are some that do not support it.
I didn't know that.
And it's not, and it's the uppers,
right?
The people who, if they were caregivers at one time, direct caregivers, they are not and haven't been in a long time.
They would understand and they would want you to protect yourself.
But I mean, even like I remember our current CEO when they started. Or at least when I first met them, I think they weren't a CEO at the time. They started a little bit lower. But when I first met them, when they were, we had not yet received tasers yet.
Right.
And because this was many, many moons ago, they were like, why don't you guys carry guns?
Right. Right.
And I was like, well, there's a story to that. Because back in the day, like, when I was, let's see, I think I was an 8th grader when they took guns away, but at one time
were they armed?
Yeah,
were they ex-policemen? I mean,
no, it was the team was so small. Like right now, we run about 6-7 people depending on the shift.
Wow.
And
how many patients are in house for that?
I think we have about 350 beds.
Oh, that's why then.
Possibly.
And they're filled.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not all the time. I mean,
but
recently,
that,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they try.
I mean, our census is like 50. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but back then, back in the 80s, it was, you had like, your supervisor, your inside guy, and your outside guy.
Wow. Okay.
That was it.
Sure.
So if you were outside, chances of getting backup were slim. So if you were outside, you could carry.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's dark out. And all of the people who don't have day jobs, or night jobs either, are running around on 20-inch bikes, right?
Yeah.
Spotting cars, breaking windows, and looking for people like you and me. He looks easy. Let's just roll him.
Yeah.
You don't have a gun. You have a taser. Oh, wowee. And I mean, where I work, I mean, I don't feel, I'm scared way less often than I should be. I'm like the dope who goes, hey guys, what's up? No, I'm serious. Like my current partner, he's like totally critical of me. He says, you have a soft approach, man. You need to harden up. He's got some other words he uses,
I don't know. I think the soft approach works though. I think
it's worked for me on a day, officer. I don't know about the nights.
Oh,
I was in 4 fights this year, Mish. 4. And in 12, I'm beginning my 12th year. It's the first year that I've ever had to do anything like that.
Wow.
Yeah. What's that about? And we're suburbs, man. Like, we're not where you are. Yeah. So it's a young man's game, dude.
Oh, totally.
Right?
I mean, I've been with my system for about 12 years. Or I'm in my 12th year, I should say.
Right.
But there's a desk job I have my eyes on.
Good.
That
nice.
I'm just.
That's a career.
Like
when you get to the desk, that's a career.
And honestly, my ultimate retirement goal is the dojo. I really don't want to do security work.
Right.
I do it because it's in my nature to do.
Right.
It's just the type of person I am. Right. But I want to do stuff like this. I want to teach. I want to, that's my ultimate goal. But it is, and I've had ups and downs over the years. I want to do a Mondays with Sensei Mish episode on death because my mom died a couple years ago, and that affected me personally like I didn't ever expect.
And so it should.
And you might even describe it as clinical depression, but I never took any meds, and I'm not, I drink alcohol, but I never. If I was going to be an alcoholic, it would have been. I would have found out when I was 14.
Beer glasses, man.
Well,
are they not beer glasses? They look like beer glasses.
Well, they're 16-ounce glasses. Actually, this one right here, this is a Henry Weinhardt's.
Excellent.
I got it for my 21st birthday when I went and I rented a keg.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, 100-year anniversary. That's mine. Well,
Good for
was it
you.
100 years?
Yeah.
He was 150 years. So, but I've always liked the 16-ounce glasses.
You need a desk job. That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, before you get hurt too.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, right.
And so, as I begin rebuilding, because, I've had, of course, a number of students to no students to,
Sure.
Back and forth. And so right now it's like, okay, I have come to terms with everything that's happened. I've, it's one of those, and I don't like popping pills. So it's been a mind game for me. So
what's a mind game?
Of getting out of, overcoming my mom's death and all that kind of stuff and being like, no.
So you were thinking of like antidepressants and so on?
I never considered taking drugs.
Okay, good.
But I do know there were days where I was just like, I'm going to call out from work because I really don't give a shit.
Right.
And I'm just going to sit at home and not do anything.
That's what you should
And
do.
then get pissed off because I was completely unproductive for the day.
Yeah. But, I mean, grabbing the shadow, grabbing the dark side and powering through that, not powering despite it, but but letting it be dark, and getting the gifts of your mother's death, getting the gifts of the darkness and so on. That's key, man, to your becoming a human being.
Yeah.
Because anything other than that, you're going to be like everybody else.
Right.
You won't be informed. You won't be enlightened. You won't be whatever.
Yeah.
So Dan, who you had on,
right.
I know his perspective because I follow him too. I have never met Dan, but nonetheless,
you've never been.
I wasn't going to workshops and stuff.
We'll get you.
And I had professional dojos. In Sherwood. Before that, Hillsboro. Open hand, open heart. Not open hand, open heart, but the Kempo guy you were talking about before.
Open hand Kempo, yeah.
Yeah. I think they were in my wash as I left. When I closed our dojo, they opened theirs, Anyway, I know his background, and he would be the guy to reach out to. I mean, I'm going to be anti-drugs on your depression anyway, just because of my clinical training. I have had some. But he's got some broad-based perspectives as a certain kind of philosophy or religion. So who will say, don't do that.
Right.
So good for you. So you powered through.
So I powered through it.
You don't appear depressed now.
Well, I have my days. I think genetically, I'm predisposed to it.
It's the Northwest, man. Right?
You're telling me.
Why do we live here?
Oh my gosh,
there are places with sun elsewhere.
My dad moved to Florida because he got on one of those sun maps.
Right.
And that's where the sun is out.
Is that how he found it? Seriously?
Well, he's always kind of been that
he was Connecticut,
West Indies type of he need like the what is it? He needs that more humid environment, more sun. But living in Connecticut, the winters are like,
everybody thinks of Florida
super freezing, and then the summers are humid but really, really hot.
Right.
So, it's like, when it's like 40 degrees here, it's like, hey, it's 70 and sunny. How are you?
Right.
Right. And I've been out to visit him and even going down to visit Bram.
Right. Is he in Florida?
He is.
Okay.
Yeah. He's just outside of Fort Lauderdale. Oh. And I can't do the humidity. And
I had a big shot job interview in Broward County. Yeah. That was the downside. Everything else was on the upside. I mean, it would have put me in like the top 6 guys in my denomination at that point.
Yeah.
And I went all the way up to the last few moments and finally said no. And some of it had to do with the dynamics of the interviews. They had a guy listening who was doing a content analysis of my speech, of my speech patterns, like I'm talking to you now, and hadn't informed me that they were doing that, and the person who was doing that wasn't qualified to do that. So I was like, this is a subtle kind of abuse. I don't need this. But the other piece was, oh my God, it's like raining there even when it's not raining. I mean, it's so humid. Jeez, I don't want this.
Yeah. I don't mind having hurricane shutters on my house, but I want those for zombies, not for actual hurricanes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a nice place to visit. I couldn't live here, but
that would be my choice.
I don't know. I've just always lived here.
Yeah.
My wife, she likes it here. We could use more sun, all that vitamin D. I love sucking.
How did we get to talking about depression?
I I don't know. I think it was, because we talked, basically we started off with a desk job.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Because
it's rough out there.
Because it is rough out there.
Right.
But, yes, my goal is for this. So I'm in that rebuilding stage.
Right.
But when, so this is my plan A. My plan B is the desk job. So, because you still got to have health insurance. And of
Sadly.
course, as we get older, gotta, I hurt my knee running to a co-gray.
There you go.
And for those people who don't know what a co-gray is, that is a combative situation.
Right.
And I run because that's just the culture. That's what we do.
Okay.
And I didn't do anything.
And you're
weird.
not a runner generally.
No,
but you
I'm
do
not,
run with 20 pounds of extra equipment on.
I do.
Right.
I've got a little
vest?
bit of. Well, we don't have vests, but I do. I've got 20 pounds, probably 20 pounds of a duty belt and gear, and then. But I'm not a marathon runner.
Right.
But I can run really fast, short distances.
Wow.
I've always been good at that. So even for a big guy. But my body didn't twist or pop or anything. It was I just ran, and a couple hours later, I'm just like, oh, my knee kind of hurts.
What was it?
Have no clue.
Oh, you didn't do anything.
And then I ran to another co-gray later on in the day.
Uh-huh.
My knee hurt more. I did go see a doctor. Doctor said I probably strained it, so keep off of it for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, about a week later, my knee just started turning bright red, and then it started turning dark red.
Wow.
And I was like, so I go into employee health, and I'm like, we've already been tracking this.
Yeah, right.
What is this? And they were like, we have no idea. And my knee, like, if this was my knee normally, that was my knee because it was swollen and it hurt. And so they were like, well, we'd like to drain it, but we don't, when it comes to workman's comp, we don't know if we can do that here in the clinic.
Right.
And, so we'll take a culture, see if, what's underneath there. And culture came back clean. So,
of course, you had a mechanical injury of some sort.
Yeah. But it was an infection.
No.
And we don't know.
You got an infection running after somebody?
I have no clue. No cut skin. One of the reasons that they took the culture is because they thought, well, maybe, whatever happened could have been MRSA, a MRSA infection, but it came back clean. So 12 years at this hospital, I'm still MRSA free, which is good,
Yep.
But yeah, no, totally baffled. Totally baffled.
It's better now?
And yes, it is. It is. I trot to co-graze. I don't fully run.
I don't run anymore.
until I'm like, but yeah, I mean, it's like, so, I mean, I was lucky that happened at the hospital and I am taken care of with workman's comp, but as a martial artist and as a martial arts instructor, if I get hurt, I'm not competing, but if I get hurt, whatever, I'm not getting any younger. And, you can take care of yourself really well. The body is still degrading. And so that's a necessary thing. So it's like, okay, slowly build the school, promote myself through podcasts and, Kyusho Corner and all that kind of stuff, hosting and doing seminars.
You're doing good at that.
And then just build that up. And then when I get to that point, I will leave.
Take the leap.
But the desk job, this desk job is sweet. It's like
cool,
the kindest people on the planet. The guy who has a spot right now is just finishing up his college and going to be moving into a different career.
Oh, good.
And my seniority is pretty much I will be the next person.
And they pay attention to that.
Yes.
So they'll honor that.
They will honor that. And there are people who have been there longer with me who have more seniority than I do, but they're like, no, I'm going to be out the door in the next year, so I don't want to move, or I really like the spot that I'm at, or I've threatened them.
Yes, of course.
So everybody knows when that spot opens up,
right,
that is Mish's spot. So, but that spot will allow me
to do the rest,
to spend more time focusing on this, on my martial arts and all that kind of stuff.
Well, when you open commercially,
I
guess that's our word. We ought to chat. I mean, I left. I called what I usually tall steeple ministry. So I had lots of people.
Right.
I wasn't like, I was an educated minister with, at one point in Reno, I actually had a radio broadcast. It was kind of fun. And was publishing my messages every week and so on. When I left that in 2000, I must have spent, I don't know, 6 to 8 months just studying business plans.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, when I contacted my teacher, who brought a business plan with him as well, we were the first people to open an after-school martial arts program. A transported after-school martial arts program in Oregon, I think. And then there were other people who picked it up. It was the result of not just like renting a place and putting out a sign and a popcorn machine and doing karate birthday parties, or whatever's popular right now, Yeah. It was the result of a study of the area. I mean, we weren't anthropologists, but we almost opened up to a strip club in St. John. It was right next to us, and I didn't know because that's just me.
Yeah.
I'm Mr. Soft Approach. I didn't know it was a strip club. You probably would have known. My partner, my teacher, he knew immediately it was a strip club, It was like, okay, we can't open next to a strip club and make most of our business, 90% of our business with kids. That's not going to work for us.
Yeah.
Anyway, we did some great business plans. We bought some of the business plans, the after-school martial arts gigs. And when I sold that Hillsborough studio 4 years later, I think it was, I sold it to a manager that I selected because I believed he, quite possibly, or he and his network would be able to purchase the studio. So you take this long-term thing, not just like, hey, I'm a martial artist and I'm really cool and look at all my degrees on the wall, from certified and uncertified people telling me that I'm cool. You got to do that deep thing. Where do I want to end up with this? How do I get rid of it when I'm done, and so on? So we sold the first one, which was in Hillsborough, and then the second one I lost in the business downturn, and because one of my senior students decided that he would just take some of my students. He took a third of my student base. So there you have it. Yeah. I obviously failed in his moral education. So if you're watching this right now, I don't hold it against you, but I think you ought to start reading, or sit with somebody. Lordy. Anyway.
Yeah. So when did you start studying martial arts?
I was in college. So I think it was because I'm ancient, I've become one of those ancient ones. It was 72, I think, or 73. And they had mandatory gym. So they're making you pay, and I don't know what it was. It was a lot of money at the time. I was on a tuition remission plan because my dad was dean of admissions.
Okay.
So it was free, but nonetheless, they made you take 3/4 of gym classes.
Wow.
So you could have golf, or you could have calisthenics or weightlifting and so on. So I took two karate, I want to say semesters. They were quarters, actually. I think from a Shotokan woman, and one of weightlifting. And then I enjoyed all of that, so 72 on,
Right on.
Yeah. Walked into a Parker studio in 77, and I don't think it was Parker anymore. It was one of the fallouts on the East Coast, early fallouts. Turned out this was a guy I knew from my high school band days.
Oh, wow.
Who was a trombonist, or is it trombonerini? I don't know what trombonists call themselves, And I went through his intro program, and he was doing, if any of your listeners know the Tracy Business Manual, he was doing the Tracy Business Manual at the time. So there were 5 lessons, and they start pitching you in the 3rd lesson because you have 2 more lessons after that to get you to buy. And I didn't buy until 82, maybe. And that's when I walked into an American Kempo studio.
Okay.
And so from 82 on for sure, but my martial arts interest and practice and so on started in the 70s. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, Billy Jack, man.
And has it always been
Kempo?
Kempo?
Was it always Kempo? So I guess that's my base art. For sure, it's my base art. I did some Tai Chi with a guy in Reno who's now dead. My instructor didn't like that, but I did it anyway because I thought it was intriguing.
Yeah.
And I was with Stan Miller for, I think, a year. One of my upper belts, who I think was a 3rd degree black belt at that time, she's pregnant. And we would go over to Stan's studio. I mean, wrestle with a pregnant woman. That's an experience, man.
Yeah.
And of course, Stan's all into pain. I mean, that's what Stan excels at, is pain. So I learned with him forever. And then at one point helped him teach some children's classes for a while. And during which point we were, Wally J was in, Leon J was in, and a couple others, and I was sponsoring them and helping to sponsor them, co-sponsoring them. And I think my old Kempo club is still on his website, Valley Kempo, which was one of my experiments in a non-profit thing. So Kempo, small circle, which is all I really use at work when it works.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it doesn't work. I mean, you got a guy where you got to do a large circle takedown instead of a small circle takedown. Yeah. So your small bag, as Stan used to teach me, ought to have stuff that works for you like pretty much all the time.
Right.
And your big bag may be whatever. So my big bag is Kempo.
Okay.
My small bag has a lot of jits in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Did you do you ever get into Kyusho or pressure points?
I had some exposure with Stan at the time, and he was new in it at the time. I was taking a weapons system in Nevada from a friend, Dave McNeil, and the Gochi Shori weapons system. He's since retired. The guy who does Kane Fu or whatever his name is up in Tahoe, used to be one of Dave McNeil's students.
Right.
And he was like, that was mandatory to get to black belt. You had to do the pressure spots and so on, and you actually had to do the healing. So I was exposed to Sifuku Jitsu, which is given Dave's practice, McNeil's practice, is an extraordinary art in itself. It's kind of using the same points for healing, and I know you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
But no, I practiced it on my kids.
Okay.
And I taught it in the dojo, but not as something that was 100% functional.
Okay.
It was a go-to to set up a technique that would be functional.
Right.
So we probably taught 40 of them or something like that. But we didn't do hours of the day that you could access those spots. I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. We didn't do angles necessarily, although we understood that some things are better hit and some things are better rubbed and some things are better at an angle. But we weren't like religious on that either. Mm-hmm. I'd do them as setups. If you needed somebody to tweak this way so you could kick their leg out.
Right.
Yeah. Stan's comment used to be, because this was early on in his career, was and I can't remember who he got this from. It might have been Wally. If you punch him first, you can throw him easier next. Yeah.
That sometimes works, yeah.
You maybe not in our thing, but but
you
there
can't really punch patients or
you can't.
visitors.
It's not that you don't, but
yeah.
it should always be occasional, and certainly if you're in some risk or somebody else. I haven't punched anybody yet. And so now he's probably, if you hit this pressure spot first, then you can throw them. Right. I guess. I don't know. I haven't seen Stan in years, but, as I look at, I think, okay, so you've done all this. What would be really interesting to do in your retirement? I didn't think I'd retire, but my body doesn't want to do Kempo anymore. It just doesn't move as well. So I think I've made my last promotions to my students. And I've made my last challenge to my senior students that are still active in the martial arts. And I thought, what would be fun to relax in? And I thought of BJJ. Mm-hmm. I've had some of that. Our studio both the Hillsborough studio and the Sherwood studio both had BJJ instructors. But that's pretty grueling, man. They expect a level of fitness I'm not sure I can come up to now. Mm-hmm. But then I read Tom Callis's posts.
Right.
There's a guy who's really struggling with that.
Dude.
Right?
How
many hips has he had, right? You're a freaking bionic man, I mean, it's amazing.
He broke his femur a couple of years ago, didn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
You see the x-rays, they're like, oh my God.
Oh, I know.
So I thought about BJJ, and there's Mike's down near me. He's in Columbia City or whatever. Mike, I'm just, you think what I'm thinking?
Or Mike Mathers?
Yeah, Mike Mathers is right near me. Yeah. And Mike and I have chatted about, but Mike would twist me up, man. I mean, one of his senior students tells me that Mike's gentle and so on, but
Yeah.
I look at his pictures, man. I don't think you're gentle, man. I don't know. Maybe you are. I thought about Aikido because I've always thought that was kind of neat.
Okay.
And I come close to maybe going back to stands.
Mm-hmm.
But I might also just write a book.
Oh, there you go.
Or fix my floating home, or take my wife out for lunch. I don't know.
Now so I'm impressed with the houseboat. I've seen pictures of you guys
right?
redoing the deck and doing this and doing that.
Nancy's dream.
And I'd always thought, because I love being on the water.
Oh, you should come down. I've got like canoes out the wazoo, man.
And I've got I had
take them out.
If I had never, because actually when I was much younger, I did not plan on getting married. I was not that. Marriage and kids were not in my future. I did not see it.
You'd be a bachelor guy the rest of your days?
Yeah.
Something?
And not like the whoring bachelor, but I just wasn't interested.
Whoring bachelor. What a great phrase.
Yeah.
Right. Understood.
And then I met my wife.
Right.
And everything changed.
Yeah. I can tell that.
It's kind of weird how things like that happen, but and
you have some kids too, right?
I do. I have 3.
Wow.
I have 3, 22, 18, and 13.
Oh, older than I thought.
Yeah. Huh. So, and I do have a 2-year-old cat. He'll be 2 on the 26th of April. I think, so.
Wow. Okay.
So it's like
I'm a dog guy.
It's like it's like dealing with a little toddler. He actually throws temper tantrums.
Your cat does?
He does. It's really funny. He'll get in trouble. Like we'll be like, I say that he's a good cat that makes bad decisions. But,
right.
But it's like, so he'll get in trouble and then he'll do that just running from like all over the house.
Zooms. Yeah.
And he zooms. And so I'm like, and he does that. Like sometimes he does that just because cats do that.
Right.
But he does that after he's been scolded.
Oh,
and
fascinating.
I'm like,
wow.
He's throwing a temper tantrum.
Wow. I guess so. Right.
So yeah, it's pretty funny.
Do you practice your martial arts on your cat?
Sometimes I do practice pinning and
pinning and flipping and leverage and
and his name is Dojo, so
that's
it
great.
Does fit.
Yeah, I've worn my dog many times because initially we got him as a puppy, and it's the first dog I've had as a puppy since I was like a little kid.
Yeah,
and he bit me like in the first couple of weeks, and I fixed that. He doesn't bite people now.
Did you bite him back?
No, but it was scary enough for him. I think that he just stopped doing that. Now he'll soft mouth, and we're still training him, but he doesn't have any of that. And but occasionally, like he moved on me. Gosh, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 weeks ago.
Yeah.
When I was moving his blanket or something like that, and I was out of there before he even had a chance because I have some pretty good hand speed still. And I just warned him. I said, "You do not want to do this. I will choke you out." Which would be a humane thing. I mean, you don't want to beat a dog or anything like that, but you do need some options.
Yeah, Dojo's
not normally. You don't need options, but we live among a lot of dogs on the moorage that are supposed to be leashed that are not, and some of them look quite.
Yeah. Well, I go back and forth on dogs. I'm not generally a dog person. There are some dogs that I'm okay with, and then there's some dogs that I will walk around.
Oh, totally.
I'll take the
Right.
So, but and I grew up with cats. I've always had cats.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, with getting back onto the water, I had actually originally thought that I'm not going to be married, not going to have kids. I can, I'll live on a boat.
Some people do that.
I actually, I had considered that, and I had brought that up to my wife, and she doesn't like the water.
Oh.
She does know how to swim.
Okay.
But even when I've talked about getting a boat, because she used to say, well, why, you can't get a boat. We don't have anything to haul the boat with.
Right.
But now we have a truck that will haul the boat. So it's like, ooh, I can get a boat now.
Right.
But she's like, you'll never catch her on the water. She says, she always tells me black people hate water. And I'm like, no.
She could say that.
She can say that. I come back with just because somebody convinced your ancestors 400 years ago to get on a boat doesn't mean that all black people don't like water.
Right.
So, which you take offense to that? Don't care.
Yeah.
Well,
my son,
and of course she just kind of laughs and ha 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 whatever.
Right.
But yeah, no, she's very serious. She does not like the water, and all of our kids have had swimming lessons.
Right.
Not to the extent that I really think they should, but they all know how to tread water, and they they're not afraid of water. Good. And they've been out on the water.
Right.
But that's the one thing I missed from one of my contract companies that I work for is we were on the water, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I dug that like nobody's business.
Well, there's some real skills there. I don't know that I possess them.
Yeah.
We ended up on the water because I wanted to rent a place. This is when I was single in between marriages that my kids would find me at, because I thought the divorce was difficult enough and they made up not to like Dad.
Yeah.
So I ended up on a floating home. It was like 2,100 square feet or something. It was huge. And then fell in love with it. I mean, it's very romantic, man. And before I'd go off to the dojo in Hillsborough in the mornings, I might take my kayak, paddle upstream, and then float down. And when I got home at night, because my partner would take the night times and I would take the daytimes. I took the kids and teens, and he would take the rumblers, the wrestlers and all that stuff. I would paddle upstream, crack my beer, and then float down and have my beer before dinner. That's pretty cool.
That sounds so peaceful.
I know,
oh
right?
My gosh,
so I'm sitting on a porch in St. Helen, which is a wraparound porch, and it's the house I kind of always wanted. It was an old house, and it had shop space, which I'm a neophyte at, but I work at it.
Yeah.
And it had a 2.5 car garage that I had made into a shooting range for fast draw. I shoot fast draw with wax bullets and 209 shotgun primers. So it's still 700-800 feet per second coming out on a timed target. And so it's all about speed,
Right.
So I had 6 targets in that, and I had about an acre to mow. It was like perfect. And she walks up to me one day. I'm sitting out there with my dog eating an egg. Dog's going to get the egg bowl after I'm done, So he's all happy, and I'm all happy. And I'm watching the cars go by, and she says, "I think it's time to go to the water." And I went, I'm quite happy here. This is good. I said, in fact, I'm pretty sure that I will die on this porch counting cars. I mean, that's how good it is. And she says, I really want to do it. And then I thought about, we've been married, 18 years, 16, 17, something like that. And I thought about all the times that she followed me. Mm-hmm. Like your wife puts up with not parking her car in here. We were talking about that. And so all the times that she gave to me, and I thought, it's just time for some equanimity, so to speak. And so I said, if you want to go to the water, then we'll go to the water. And it was like 10 days later, the house was sold.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it was awful,
that was
man.
quick.
I'm dumping my new tractor for $800 that I just paid $2,100 for. It was awful. And I was telling you about, martial arts stuff. I had a garage full of martial arts stuff, or a basement full, and I'm just giving that stuff away to whatever dojo I can find.
Yeah.
We're in Hawaii, and a boat picks up our house. Right. This is a cool story.
Wow.
Attaches it, chains, and puts a bunch of guys who can't get real jobs on top of it with long poles, and pulls it out into the river. And my apologies to the river rats that were helping move it. Pulls it out into the river and pulls it downriver, and then pulls it into the new moorage, and then changes it up and then hooks it up like an RV. Mm-hmm. Plugs the sewage in, plugs the water in, plugs the electric in. I mean, it took a couple days and so on, but chained us in place, and here we are. So
right on.
About, again, something over 2,000 square feet, 2 bedrooms. I have a 400 square foot shop. I was going to do fast draw in it, and I actually have some dojo accoutrements hanging on the wall, like a belt selection, and things like that. And I thought, well, I'll teach martial arts back here and so on. But then some guy accidentally shot himself in our moorage. He's now deceased, not from that, but something else.
Yeah.
And so everybody's nervous about guns and nervous about violence and nervous about newcomers and so on. So it's like, okay, I guess it's going to be sawdust for me. That's what I'll do. So.
Or just give it time.
Yeah, it'll change.
When we first moved in, we rented for a long time, and when I would teach, I just roll up the garage door, and especially neighbors. None of our cars have ever been broken into.
Nice.
I did have a couple years ago, for some reason, one of our neighbors what was it? Their mailbox ended up in the back of my Subaru, so the back window was broken.
Wow!
But never had anything. So some of the people in our neighborhoods, it's like, well, you teach martial arts with your garage door open. And when you did patrol security, you had sometimes parked the car out front when you were on break or whatever. And
sure.
so, and sometimes you've walked outside with a gun on your hip.
Right.
People don't want to mess with you. And I'm like,
that's a good point.
Oh,
right.
okay.
Send messages. Yeah.
But
right.
the neighborhood is actually not a bad neighborhood either.
Right.
So we're really not, there's not a lot of crime here. So I think I've also lucked out in that.
Right.
But yeah, I've had neighbors go, God, I just love the fact that you're teaching with a garage door open, and it, it's
right.
It's like, it's just having that. It's like there's somebody in the neighborhood who can do something.
Sure.
So nobody wants to mess with anybody in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So.
And it's all about, when I say appearance, we don't mean it in the way it's usually used, but it's
right.
being confident and letting people see your confidence, your stride.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure, one of the profit centers used to be for us in a commercial dojo teaching women's self-defense. I don't know, and forgive me for teaching that way, but I don't know that we ever really gave women the tools they needed, because model mugging was the way to go. Red man suits was the way to go, and we didn't do any of that. We just practice these simple things, and you can use your keys this way and that and the other thing. Kubotans, big on Kubotans. But confidence is a big deal. I mean, if you look like with somebody that they're not going to mess with, or at least I know somebody like that, and he lives right next door, it makes the neighborhood a safer place. It makes your team a safer place.
Yeah.
We have ballistic vests. I don't wear one.
Yeah,
I should, because then I would look meaner and leaner, and I would look like somebody you don't want to mess with. He's obviously prepared to take a bullet.
That's funny. That conversation actually came up yesterday. I don't know who it was. It was somebody. One of the vendors that comes in. I don't see him as much as often as I do anymore, but he's a really cool guy, and I don't normally make friends with vendors, but for some reason, this guy, when I see him, I'll stop in the hall and talk to him. And,
cool.
So he was there yesterday and doing his thing, and he asked the topic of vests came up, and I was like, yeah, I said, some of our guys wear them, not, but most of them don't. I said, I have one, but the way that I'm shaped, it actually makes me look bigger than I am, belly wise.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And so I was like, if I was less belly, I would feel more comfortable wearing it.
Yeah.
But
that was one of my hang-ups initially.
Yeah. But when I carried a gun, yes, I wore a vest.
Which people shoot back.
Yeah, because people shoot back.
Yeah.
I would wear a vest because knives can also do damage.
I offered my first boss that. I said, don't give me a ballistic vest. Give me a knife-proof vest.
Yeah.
And give me some forearms. I bought my own gloves, my knife resistant, But in the end, you're 12 years. How many people have been shot or stabbed at your facility?
We're not a trauma center.
Right.
So we don't get we have gotten gunshot victims, but we stabilize them and send them on their way to somebody who can actually do more for them.
So the appearance of not having a vest, in my case, I wear a jacket generally, keeps me warm. I work nights right now, and it hides a few of my things that I have on my belt and so on. Makes me a little softer, so that person and I can have a chat. We can talk. Whereas if I was wearing a vest and looked more like a policeman, I think it would cut down on my.
Yeah, I think that might have to. Like for me, I just get fat rent a pick, fat rent a cop. I get the fat jokes.
Right.
And it's like, okay, whatever.
Right. I get the old jokes.
I was like,
which don't survive typically.
Yeah. I think my strength is my honesty, because I will be straight up. I will tell people, I was like, I will never, I have no, there's, oh God, how do I phrase it? I just lost the word. Basically, I was like, I will never lie to you.
Guile.
You may not like what comes out of my mouth. You may not like the truth, but there's no motivation for me to lie. So I'll just be honest.
Right.
And I think it's funny. I think people appreciate that.
Oh, good.
You know, when you get that nurse, like even like the simplest thing, when's breakfast? Oh, well, it'll be here soon.
Right.
No, breakfast gets here between 8:45 and 9 o'clock.
Yeah,
it is 7 in the
that.
morning.
Yep, exactly.
Just be honest.
Right.
So they're not like, you know, oh, it's almost there, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But
a lot of the people...
I think that has been my strength.
Good.
Is just being honest,
Right.
even if it's brutal.
Right.
And I think people see that as more authentic and trust that authenticity.
We've just gone to Moab because our small hospital is now clinically affiliated with a large chain.
Right.
And that's what they use. And prior to that, I think for about 6 years, maybe longer, I don't think less, I taught the de-escalation self-defense curriculum for the nurses and security staff and CNAs and whoever else,
Right.
you know. And I built it on, because it was something I was capable of, I built it on counseling micro skills. So active listening, attending skills, and influencing skills. And I probably had 20 skills that I taught, everything from, you know, like reflection, where I'm feeling down, you're feeling down today, you know, to ways that I would shape language so as to get a response and you didn't know I was actually shaping it. You know? What was my point in saying that? I'm getting so old, Mish.
It happens.
Actually, I'm on a multi-day fast right now, so I've had no food for I don't know how long.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I know, but it's good for me. It's good for me. It's an anti-cancer thing, and it might help the weight a little bit because I can be a little friendly looking at times, you know. Yeah. So I taught these things. What was my point? What were we talking about? Oh, I know what it was with the nurses and the breakfast thing.
Yes.
And so
Being
a lot of our patients are crazy because we make them crazy. You know? And so the fundamental thing in my course was let's treat people as an I thou, as instead of an I it, which was something from a 20th century philosopher, a Jewish guy that really stuck with me. I thou, Martin Buber. So if I treat a patient as a uniqueness with a mother and father, as I said earlier, you know, before I have to do something that's just god awful to them, maybe because they're acting in their assholery, as I put it earlier. I have a better shot at helping that person de-escalate than I do if I just like wave their question off and say, oh, it'll be here soon. What does that mean? You know, it just makes them crazy. Right. So when the doctor says, I'm going to put you on a hold and then walks away, instead of saying, you know, we're going to have to keep you here a while. And I know it's going to make you upset. Guy gets upset. Tell me more about your upsetment. Yes, but I think this is, and instead of spending the time, you know, that you and I would want, don't make us hospital patients, man. Right? Oh yeah. Well, I'll tell you, danger.
Some of those rooms, I've told people,
yeah,
you know, like,
don't put me in
there.
They're
like, it's like I can't stand being in here. It's like I totally understand.
Totally get it.
Because if I was put in this room and because there's no beds upstairs or whatever, right, I think I would go crazy too. Even if I wasn't crazy in the beginning, I would end up crazy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, crazy making is the clinical term for it. Yeah. And we do it all the time.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you're an author.
I write and I've published. Yeah, I have 5 full-length westerns.
Okay.
Just because I understand that period, and I lived in Nevada for 10 years, so I wrote 5. I've written more than 5, but 5 are published. And then I have 6 40-page shorts, I call them, that are private eyes, that are written as kind of a gonzo fiction thing, which is unfiltered. So my language is coarse and my situations are coarse. And but the commonality to all of them is, I think I have an ability to write violence. Okay. Because I'm acquainted with it somewhat. But the commonality is it's place-based. So whatever I write is real and true and honest for that place. And some of the people in my books are real as well. Marshals, sheriffs, politicians, stuff like that.
Based off now, is it like based off that real person using that person's name, or is that just the persona? You're basing their persona off of a real person you know.
So so my own characters in my westerns are the same characters, and they're all fictional.
Okay.
W. Ronan, William Washington Ronan, was an ex-Episcopal priest. I've never been Episcopal, but I thought it would be fun to make him an Episcopalian. I've been an ex-priest or an ex-pastor, so that part I can write, honestly. But William Washington is a family name, and Ronan is who I am. I do not have a master.
Awesome.
You know?
Okay.
So, and then I have other guys and gals who filter through these 10 books, 1880s Nevada, and the situations and the locale are real. And I'll travel to those locations. I've got quite a library about Nevada right now and so on. And then the PI, the private investigator, his adventures take place in Kauai. We typically go to Kauai every year or two.
Okay.
Just got fixated on that. Or South Jersey, Philadelphia, where I grew up. And so I'll write about the donuts at a certain IGA market, you know, and I'll use the name restaurant, the same restaurant. I'll use the same owner. Some people say, "Well, aren't you afraid of being sued?" Well, I sent one of the detective once to my brother, who's an attorney, and I said, "What do you think?" I'm a little concerned because I got a lot of mafia stuff in here, and they're real mafia guys. And quite accidentally, he tells me, he says, he had worked in a mafia. I don't know, lawyer thing.
Right.
Maybe it took him a while to figure out that he was representing criminals. I don't know. I don't know. Or maybe the firm. I don't know. And so he writes back like almost to me. He says, "You got to change some of these names. You may live in Nevada, but that doesn't make. I mean, you may live in Oregon, but that doesn't make you safe."
Right.
So those names are all made up. You
Okay.
know, Tony Tulips or something is not a real guy.
Right.
You know?
Okay. I understand.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. How long have you been doing that?
Gosh, that's a good question. I don't know. 6-8 years, maybe.
And you just decided one day, I'm just going to write a book?
We had a really slow day at work.
Really?
And I'm sitting at the computer. I got cameras up. And I'm like, wow, I've got to find a way to redeem this time. Because there's some really slow times, okay?
Yes,
it's not like you're goofing off.
There are some times where it's just I wish something would happen so I could earn my pay today.
Well,
yes,
and
I totally get it.
I'm on call at one of the children's hospitals here,
okay,
where nothing happens because it's locked at 4:30, and I don't show up till after that. And so I do engineering checks, and that's my adventure for the evening is the engineering checks.
Right.
And occasionally something happens there. So I tried it at one place, and I thought, well, what would I write? Yeah, well, you lived in Nevada, you know that. And what else do you write? What you know,
right?
Okay, so I wrote a violent opening where my guy falls off his horse, and there's a lot of gunplay, and there's some. I think he does is it tomonagi or a circle throw, and so on, and it came out about 5 pages later. I went, wow. That's not bad. Showed it to my wife, who was at that point a professional editor for a couple of newspapers in the greater Portland area. She said, "This is good stuff, Greg." So I thought, well, this would be fun, and it just took off from there. So like right now, I'm not writing. I'm not in a downtime, but I just not writing right now.
Right.
But I when I am writing, even working full time, I can turn out a book and a half a year still.
Okay.
Just, butt to seat and just making sure you churn out 1,000 words. So.
Yeah. Now, is this self-published or
These are self-published because nobody wants to publish an old white guy. No, and you got to figure that out.
No, I
figured it out early.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got a publishing company on your videos. I saw them on Amazon the other day. Go to Amazon and look at Mish Handworker, and they'll be right there, right? So my plan is still was to write a backlist, and then once I establish readership and so on, publish the 6th novel. My 6th one is in the basket. I just haven't. It's got a plot issue that I want to resolve.
Right.
Publish that traditionally, which is hard for Westerns because nobody reads Westerns anymore except for old white guys in recliners and their wives.
Yeah.
And then they'll want my backlist. And then I'll just go traditional. But traditional is like forever, man. My wife's writing she hopes a traditionally published novel right now. And, God, she's been doing it for a year and a half. I'd be out in 6 months getting checks. That's good for me. I like that. And I don't have a desire to be well known as a writer. I mean, my initial ones were to fill in the gaps for my children who grew up in Nevada.
Okay.
So they'd understand the history of Lake Tahoe,
Oh, right on.
the history of Virginia City, which was not a Western town by any means,
Right.
but repurposed itself that way. And Reno and Carson City and Gardnerville and Minden. And like the book that's in the basket right now is a book on the Northern Nevada hot springs. It's not called that. I can't think what it's called offhand. And it's about an adventure of the transition from a silver and gold mining economy to tourists, which happened in Nevada at a certain point. And so it begins at a certain point with the close of the Comstock, which was the name of the big silver boom during that time. And people start going off to Montana instead. And this is like 50s, 60s, 70s, and go down to Bodie and so on. So the transition, and it tells the history of these hot springs, which my kids all went to.
Right.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's awesome to study how did Carson Hot Springs happen? Did anything ever happen at Carson Hot Springs? Is there any info like that? And gee, what would my characters do in their time and place at the Markleyville Hot Springs, which is the first place I ever saw assless chaps. Actually, it's the last place I ever saw them too. Although
I think that would just be burned into my brain there.
Well, given your recent video of the guy, shall we just say, washing himself at a water fountain in Portland, I thought you might be familiar with that.
Yeah, that's
so. But is that great though? I mean, that would just like make my day if I saw that, because I'd write that down somewhere, and that would be in a book. Of some guy washing his personal connections at a water fountain in Portland. I mean, that's just awesome, man.
Yeah.
Who thinks of that stuff?
Well,
right?
there's because
writers don't.
You
Real
can't
people
make
do.
that stuff up.
No. That would never occur to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there's a water fountain.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because when I was growing up in Portland, I grew up in the Southwest Hills, and we'd go downtown. When I was going to high school, I bused it from my house all the way over to Central Catholic, which is out on the east side.
Right.
I did it all by myself. So my teenage years were spent downtown.
Right.
And you
wasn't like that.
And Portland, unfortunately, Portland is going down the toilet right now.
Right.
But Portland used to be a beautiful city.
Right.
And you've got those fountains. Those have been around forever, probably longer than you've been around.
Right.
And
I don't know what you meant by that, but I'll let it fly.
Long time. Long time.
I'm sure it's complimentary.
But it's like never. It's like, oh, it's just free running water, and I can get a drink.
Yeah. Right.
And then as you get older, you're like, this is probably not the wisest idea because.
Right.
It's funny. I don't know how you're this way, or if you're this way, but I am more of a germaphobe now.
Working in a hospital? Yeah.
Than I was before. I'll still go swimming in the Malala River because I grew up that way. Or I will, there's still stuff I'll do, but like I'm still
right.
It's like right on the verge of OCD, but it hasn't gotten there yet.
Totally get it.
But it's
a public water fountain though. It's not OCD, man. That's just common sense.
Just common sense.
Don't drink from that.
Because now it's like but before it seemed like it was safer, or maybe I was just younger.
I don't even drink from them in the hospital. Do you?
No.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we've replaced. We have the newfangled ones where you can put your water bottle up and it'll fill the water bottle.
Oh, nice.
Sense it. So they've replaced all the ones.
So I'll drink from those.
Yeah, well, because it's going from the tap into my bottle because it's designed for that.
But I'm not a fan of the soda dispenser either because it's kitchen people cleaning them. Mm-hmm. Oh, really? Yeah. Seriously? Did you do that on the day you were supposed to do that, or did you just kind of like pretend to do that?
I'll drink. I love Bull Run water, so I'll fill up my thing at the fountain like that. But yeah, I will buy bottled water. I don't like the fountain.
Yeah,
stuff.
we've seen some wicked stuff, haven't we?
It's gross. It's nasty.
Yeah.
But yeah, that dude washing himself in the fountain and knowing that was downtown Portland.
Out there for everybody to see.
Woo.
Totally, right?
Yeah, totally nasty.
Yeah.
So
wrong.
It
is.
And I don't know how we come back from that. I mean, like for me, I left. I mean, I didn't go far.
Circuit courts made it difficult.
I just went across the river.
And I'm not a guy who's. I hear you on that. I'm not a guy who bashes the Ninth Circuit all the time, but I mean, you can't push people out of your hospital anymore. You can't push the tents off the sidewalk. I mean, the homeless has a right to live somewhere. I actually agree with that. It bothered me in the mid 80s, early 90s to see the sheriff raids along the Carson River in Carson City, because it's not like you say, "Oh, when I grew up, I want to live along the river," you know. Despite how much Saturday Night Live you watched, you know? It's not like a goal. So these people are just trying to make it. And if it were me, I'd want to be able to do that. But on the other hand, I was down there. My wife was seeing an editor the other day for her novel. And I parked my car and I was drinking my tea. And it was time to go to the bathroom, you know. And I was like, what to do? So there were homeless tents all over the place. And so they obviously go to the bathroom. So I need to tap into this wisdom here, you know. They go to the bathroom somewhere. Where do they go to the bathroom? So instead of bothering the homeless guy, because I don't carry cash, okay? So don't ask, you know. And that's why I don't carry cash.
Yeah.
I bothered somebody who was a step away from homeless.
All right.
He was just like watching the birds or something. And I said, "Hey, brother, where do I go to the bathroom?" And he said, "The loos are right there." And he pointed down there, and it was one of those stainless steel, easy to clean things. And then there was a guy in there for 20 minutes. Oh my God, is he going to be in there forever? Is it the rain? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Please stop. I just need to use the loo.
Yeah.
You know? It's awful down there. We don't go anymore. We don't go to Saturday market. When we lived on Sauvie Island, we always went to Saturday market. Every Saturday we went, you know. I don't do that. I don't do museums. I always carry. I generally always carry. I'm not today in your dojo out of respect and the fact that I'm in Washington, and it makes it a little squirrely. But I started carrying a concealed firearm when I went down to Chinatown in the day.
Yeah.
And then, and this may be out of the scope of your podcast, but then it occurred to me, you should never go to a dangerous place, whether you're carrying a bazooka or not. It's a dangerous place. Don't do that. Don't go there. Duh.
Yeah.
So, and one of my family members who is NRA certified like I am to teach classes on that stuff says, Greg, if, you know, this is our right to do this. And if you can, you should, and you might need it. And it's those times when you don't think. And so, you know, now I do, and it's beyond the weirdness of it, you know, and just like sticking a pen in my pocket or something like that.
Right.
And hope to God I never end up using it. But particularly in Portland.
Well, you know,
my wife doesn't feel safe. Does your wife feel safe down there?
My wife doesn't go down there.
There you go.
No.
What's with that?
My wife is very much a homebody.
How about Vancouver? Will she go downtown Vancouver? Nice city.
We've gone down there.
Nice places, some great restaurants.
I mean, we don't frequent there. Like I said, my wife is a homebody, but even though, you know, we have a homeless problem over here.
Yes.
You know.
So I don't know how we solve that, but we need to get the tents off the street.
Yeah.
And we don't need to be building buildings for folks who need housing. They should find a way.
Have you seen that new documentary, Seattle is Dying?
You know, it's on my radar.
So I was told by many people, dude, you got to watch this. And I watched it the other night. It's an hour long, and I was blown away.
Some folks have been saying Portland is dying too.
And I in that incident that I told you about, the guy getting into the middle of 84, when police showed up,
right?
We were waiting for the guy to get checked out because he wasn't eventually going to jail. And so I asked the cop, I said, hey, have you seen this? He goes, yeah. And I said, wow. Okay, so as a police officer, what's your opinion of Portland? And he says, well, if we aren't there already, we're really goddamn close. Wow. Huh. And I was like, wow. Yeah. Because of course, I only see a portion of it, and I don't go, like, I'm an Apple fan.
Huh.
I don't go to the Apple Store downtown. I mean, I have,
right,
and it's not completely off my radar, but I prefer to go out to Washington Square, or down to Bridgeport, because it's the downtown Apple Store is beautiful, but when you're down there and you look across the way and you see a patient that you restrained, just the day before,
right,
and you're with your kids,
right. Third reason why I carry, because there are too many patients that I've
and so so it's like, no, I will take the long way. And it kind of drives my son nuts because he loves going downtown. He's
he's urban because he doesn't know any better.
Doesn't know. He wants to live in LA.
Oh wow.
And he's going to be going to college in Seattle, and so it's just like
Tenderloin. Oh, that's San Francisco, but still.
But
that would teach him.
I love him to death, but it's just one of those things. I try to explain to him. It's like, hey, there's. I don't want to be on the news. My wife always told me when I used to bounce, I would go from work, get on the Max, and then train it to wherever I was bouncing. And she's like, I really don't feel comfortable with you, taking the Max, because at the time I rode my bike to work, and that was when I was much more fit. But it was. She's like, well, I don't want you taking Max, and I was like, why? Are you afraid I'm going to end up on the news? She's like, yes, because you are that guy who's going to step in, who's going to step into a situation,
knock this
and
shit off. Right.
I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, and then it escalates, and before you know it, you're in a situation you never wanted to be in.
And so it's like, I don't want to. I don't want to end up on the news for stabbing some guy in an Apple store.
Right. Well, you would just stab him. That's the problem.
Or defending myself in an Apple store. It's like, no, it's the avoidance is the first thing. So it's like, I'll just avoid downtown Portland.
Well, I mean, I spent for 6 years I was in and out of Honduras doing trips, building hospital, building a church, building homes, etc. And it's likely I may go to Guatemala this fall. My son is the director of Evergreen Habitat over here in Vancouver.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's not like I don't know poor people. I mean, I know poor people by name in Honduras, in Kauai, in Portland, in the town where my hospital is, and so on. And I care about those people, and I check in with them. I'm sure you do too. You know, reasonable human beings do that. And it's not like I don't want for them what I want for myself. It's just, I don't think we've figured out how to do the new urban yet. And it's now becoming the new suburban as well. We have homeless people in Scappoose, where I live, and in St. Helens, where I used to live, and which don't represent necessarily a violent population, but they do attract a group of people who are maybe edged to that are, what's the word? I mean, they're preying on people, you know, messing with people. And I don't want to get into that, so I avoid it too.
Yeah,
sadly.
And it's one of the points of that of the documentary is that it's not a homeless issue; it is a drug issue.
It is a drug issue, right?
And that politicians they use the word homeless, but they're not facing what it really is. And I agree with that with that theory, and because I see it when people come into the hospital,
right?
You know. And and even the police officer that I was talking to yesterday, he was like, he says, I agree with the thesis too. It is a drug issue. It's not a homeless issue, because they may not have a home or a house or whatever you want to talk about, identify that as, but it's the drugs that then feed into the theft.
Right.
And it's
feed into the robbery.
Yeah. And it's,
So I had a traveling nurse haul me into an imaging room once and showed me the CAT scan. I guess it was a CAT scan. It was some kind of a scan. And said, look at that. What do you see? And we were looking at a brain. And I said, it doesn't look normal. He says, no, it's not. And he says, here's what I want you to hear. And I don't know why he took an interest in showing me this. He said, this isn't just this patient's issue. This has likely been a genetic issue, and not genetic, so not the word genetic. Maybe this has been a heritage. This has been a family issue. Okay. So it was not just him. It was his parents and maybe their parents. And this man here, you know, the guy who's laying in your hospital bed,
right,
doesn't have a chance to come back.
That's sad.
Yeah. Wow. And this man isn't necessarily the bad guy. I mean, you know, you work with people who call them dirtbags and all kinds of other words. And maybe those are words that sometimes when the day has gone really long and it's been violent and you know, we lapse into. We don't necessarily mean it.
It's the black humor that keeps us sane.
Yeah,
yes.
It's dark humor for sure. I mean, I don't know how you, other than what we learn in the martial arts, not to get back to martial arts, but nonetheless, intentionality, training, focus, you know. I'm on my 4th day of a fast. Why? Well, in large part because there's a secondary benefit to me. Sure, I might lose a little bit of weight, you know, and I might be less likely to get certain cancers or something if I do that in a regular way. But I'm doing it because it also puts me in charge of things I should be in charge of.
Right.
You apparently like cookies. You should go to Kauai with me, man. That's like cookie heaven. I just like, boo, 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 boo. You know, you come back and you look, wow, this pants don't work anymore. What's up with that? Well, I did that, you know. So how do we teach people who are on the edge? My interest has always been kids, you know, so can we grab people soon enough that can somehow escape this legacy, that's the word I was looking for, this legacy of dark stuff, you know, to actually make changes in their lives. I have a karate student who's a heroin addict, and he is friends with a family member who's had some heroin issues. Just a real loss for me. What didn't I do with that child when I was teaching him?
Right.
That he ended up that way. You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well,
martial arts is one of the answers. Your dojo, not to pump you, but your dojo is one of the answers.
Yeah.
Those relationships between a teacher and a student. And so on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and I think when it, you know, you talk about, you know, you being on this fast and proving that you can be in control, and that all has to do with, I can't think of the word, but it's
your word.
Dedication. But that all comes from just our training in martial arts. You know,
yes,
when we talk about,
yeah.
you know, our, you know, the feeding or not feeding into temptation.
Right.
You know, we make that choice of what we're going to feed into and what we're not.
Right.
Our discipline.
Right.
That's the word I'm looking for. Our discipline.
Yeah, I didn't learn that from my parents. I didn't learn that from church, but I definitely learned that from my martial arts teachers.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
So if you're going to a McDojo, you know, and you're not getting discipline, not only are you not getting the life-enhancing skills, you know, that there's plenty of science to back up. If you're just running around eating cotton candy, to borrow one of our mentors right now, is talking about that on his Facebook page, and you're doing birthday parties and inviting your friends, and we have such fun when we go there, you know, if that's all you're doing, then man, you're missing the whole point of it.
Right.
Even if you know bladder point number 3 or whatever it is you're teaching that day. You know?
But yeah, and it's just one of those things. Like for me, it's I don't know what I would do with martial arts not in my life.
Right. Same.
And like you know, for me there was a break. There was a break of about I don't know, maybe a year and a half.
Oh, well, that's not very long.
Where I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And because I just was focusing on other things or doing whatever, and I didn't like who I was. Things were rough, even stuff between me and my wife. It was just, you know, we were in that stage of, can't remember how she phrased it, but basically roommates. Oh, wow. We were just roommates.
Yeah.
And
not good.
And
you've been married 20 some years, right?
In June, it'll actually be 23 years.
Right.
So in May, we will have been together for 25.
Yeah. I remember you talking about that on one of your things. So.
And, but when I got back and, you know, when I was like, okay, well, you know, what am I missing in life?
Right.
You know, what else is going on?
Right.
And, you know, martial arts just came back to me, and it was like, no, this is what I'm missing, you know?
Right.
And it, you know, like everything just started to come back together, and everything has been great, you know?
You know, it was, martial arts for me, did what my parents didn't do.
Yeah.
For me. It's not that they didn't try, but I often talk about it as it parented me, it reparented me. And I wasn't in as a kid, I was in as a young adult. It provided me with a framework with which to read the universe, but more so to understand myself. So for me, intentionality, what you call discipline, is a key piece.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you achieve most things. There is a magic, I think, to the universe at times.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, is where I've come down to. But for the most part, you need to be working it.
Right.
Know? I miss it too. I haven't trained in, I don't know now, 6 years. And my base art, American Kempo, is all about technique. And I ran through the Tracy system, which was like twice as many techniques, almost a black belt. So I have, 300, 400 techniques or something, supposedly in my head that I'm supposed to be practiced on and so on. And thank God for Stan's comment about the small bag, because I just have a small bag now. To teach, I'd have to really go back and practice again.
I one thing I've learned, and it's been more recent than past, is principle. Everything is based off principles.
Sure.
And so you could have a bunch of techniques,
right?
But those techniques are based on principle. And so if you understand the principle, then I use Rory Miller. Have you heard
I know
that?
his work. Yeah.
So
on violence.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Just.
Yep.
Rory said he would actually do a podcast.
He should.
Just
Good.
getting that
That'd be awesome.
stuff in here. Anyway,
yeah.
So his the locking class that he did here once, and then he also has a DVD on it. But his concept of locking is that we have all of these locks, and I teach a number of locks.
Sure.
But it really boils down to, well, what does the body do?
Right.
Well, we have a hinge joint, we
right.
have a ball and socket joint, and
right.
we have a gliding joint.
Right.
And as long as you understand how those three joints work,
right,
you can do locking.
You can do locking. You won't hurt your uke. You won't hurt your partner.
I say uke. Some people say uke.
I don't know.
I got stopped in a store because I had uke on the back of my shirt, and somebody thought it had to do with the ukulele.
Wow.
Yeah, because they call it an uke.
Yeah, right.
And I was like, oh, sweet. But then we started talking martial arts, and
that's a cool
shirt.
So
it's pretty funny. So
and you also won't hurt the person you're applying it on, because you understand the wrist doesn't do that.
Yeah.
It's like my partner now is a former policeman, and he ran a department for a while, and he's got a lot. I call him a trunk monkey because he is a trunk monkey. And if you're familiar with that,
yeah,
okay. And I'm like the highly finessed guy. I mean, I'm super finessed. You don't know whether I'm telling you the truth or not. Sadly,
Right.
I'll own that. But he's like wham bam, and he doesn't understand how fingers work. So when he does a cop finger thing, he's nowhere near, right? What we learned,
right?
He doesn't know how not to break that, and he doesn't know that not breaking that is key to that being effective.
Yeah,
or taking two instead of one because it's safer for them and for you. I probably still have five wrist locks in my head that I can move with, But I also know that when the offender is resisting, that my wrist locks aren't doing anything.
Yeah.
If I hit him first, I can put a wrist lock on it.
Yeah.
But that's tough on camera.
Yes.
And it's also tough on my humanity.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel bad when I get into it with somebody. I don't want to live this way.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's kind of one of the reasons I got out of bouncing. Now, I miss it.
Yeah.
I miss it, but I saw the worst in people.
So you should know. Oh, you don't need to know, but it's a funny story.
Yeah.
When I left ministry in 2000, I had a staff of 30-some people. I was the head of staff and senior pastor, so I was like the speaker guy. I shaped the vision of the organization.
Right.
I shaped the message of it. That's my main piece. I have all the management functions that any manager in any position has, and I have a wonderfully talented staff that are doing it. So I leave it, and I'm like, now what do I do? And so I'm looking at business plans for karate and all, and I'm sitting with a Jungian analyst, and and he's a strong guy, which is to say, I think he can be a dick if he wants to be, which is what I need.
Yeah.
Because I can be that too, I think sometimes. And so I say to him, he says, well, what are you thinking of doing? I said, well, I think I want to open a antique store. He's like, what? And he tells me how I'm a moron for thinking about antiques because I don't know anything about antiques, and the stuff just sits there forever, and do you have the financing for that? And so it's like, okay, what else do you think about? And we're just running through the vision casting that a young man needs to do. Not so young, but 40, 50 something. I don't know what I was. And he's doing his job. And I say, I think I want to be a bouncer then. And he looks at me. At this point, he's on his feet. You know, it's like, what is wrong with you? And I'm not old. What am I? I'm 67 now. It's been 20 years. So I was 47. So I was 47, which is too old to be bouncing. I mean, you're never too old. You could be Roadhouse. But okay, I get that, you know. But even the guys in Roadhouse got trashed. Yeah. You know. So I said, no, I think this is good. I got some martial arts background, and he had some martial arts background too. And he says, you want to be a football player to be a bouncer, man. So I gave that up, and we started a martial arts studio where if somebody gets in a fight, you call the police, you know. Maybe you trash them, maybe you don't, you know, but you're not putting your life on the line, at least in a martial arts studio. And now I'm in a wicked occupation where I still have those risky moments.
Right.
Yeah. So oddly enough, and you and I are together on this, so this maybe links back into something else you might want to talk about. We've both trained widely instead of deeply in our art. You didn't do your 8th degree black belt in Taekwondo, which you certainly would have done by now if you'd stayed with TKD. Right. And I was of that opinion too. I used to drive my black belts in Kempo to 2nd degree, and then I'd push them out. I'd say, you need to go get some stuff. You know, here's some ideas. Go study with Stan. Go do this. You know, get a weapon system, but not one of those stupid weapon systems like Fan. Sorry, David, but I get the principles involved, but nonetheless, you know, you can use a rolled up newspaper. So what? You know, but go find something. So I would push them out. When my first fight last year, in the 11 years that I'd been there, I used a sacrifice throw from jiu-jitsu. And I did it terribly because I'd never been instructed in it. I just conceptually knew what I needed to do. Right. And it worked like butter. I mean, it was perfect in every way. Yeah. I looked stupid on camera. Everybody around me thought I had fallen. So I'm going like, no, I didn't fall. I mean, okay, I fell. Maybe that's the better story, you know. Yeah. And then while my partner is trying to show me your hands, and he's doing these WWE back elbow drops, you know, I'm like just taking away space. You know, I'm just doing small circle jiu-jitsu. I'm inching them up to a little crease in the wall and the floor, and I hold them there with one knee without any effort. You know, that was awesome. And that had nothing to do with Kempo that I'd spent all those years. Right. And the Kempo Nazis would probably say, oh, yeah, we have all, you know, we're a complete martial art and all this other nonsense. The fact of it is, it's nothing I was ever shown there. It was something I picked up probably in a jiu-jitsu book, or maybe from Mr. J, or, you know, whatever. Well,
and you know, you get these systems who are like, oh, we're a complete system. Right. Yeah, there's no complete system.
No. Even if you think you are.
Yeah.
So you have healing. I mean, oh, really?
Yeah.
Talk to me about your healing techniques.
I mean, you know, I don't mean to dig on Taekwondo, but I'm going to do it anyway.
My first school that I owned was a Taekwondo school.
Yeah.
As a green belt.
My first Arnis instructor, before I started training with Professor Anderson, she brought out Tim Hartman. Yeah. And so that was how I originally met him. And so she had a relationship with a guy who ran a local Taekwondo school. And unfortunately, I think there was some scandal. He was around for a long time, but now he's not. But so Hillsborough? I don't know. I'm sorry?
In Hillsborough?
Not in Hillsborough. Okay. This was, he had a school in Milwaukee, and then he had a school off of 82nd Drive in Clackamas, and then he had one on, he moved to somewhere else in Milwaukee. But, so he was, she was working with him with Arnis, and so he had asked, because he had a demo team, could they do a demo at the seminar? Cool. And so she's like, yeah, sure.
Absolutely. Right.
So here we are. We're playing with sticks and knives.
Right.
And they do a demo that involved knives.
Right.
And
you were captured.
Everyone was just like, I'm so embarrassed for you.
Oh,
right
because
now.
these are
because
Taekwondo knives?
They were
or these are harness knives?
No, this was Taekwondoists doing their Taekwondo demos.
With knife attacks.
And
Lord
defenses.
Jesus, that's got to be awful.
Yeah. And so you're,
Yeah.
and so you have people who've been playing with knives and sticks for hours watching this demo. And to maybe a layperson, it looked okay. But for somebody who, is studying something a little bit more effective, we felt embarrassed for them. And
outraged would have been the better
it's
word.
just like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
And but just use that example. I mean,
yes,
it's like, so I do Kempo, I focus on pressure points, I do knife stuff, I've done stick stuff. I'm not as I'm not as good at it as I used to be, but I wouldn't be doing a stick demo.
Al DeCascos and I were partnered up in Beaverton one night.
Yeah.
And we're doing stick stuff because he was into, I can't think of that guy's name. He's now gone, but he's an accomplished harness guy, as most Kaji guys are. And I looked at Al's knuckles, and they were bashed, battered, and bleeding and whatever. And I said, Al, what the hell's the matter with you? Why are you doing this stuff? Mm-hmm. But I think he probably valued what you're valued, which is the benefit of adding a system to your system.
Yeah.
To make it more complete.
Right.
Because it worked. We didn't teach, when we opened in Hillsborough, and I didn't mean to cut you off. Looks like I might have. But, Dave, we had a C Corp, but nonetheless I call him my partner. My teacher and we looked at the Kempo curriculum, which, I mean, again, he was like the 1st, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th degree black belt. And I said, Dave, I just can't in all good conscience teach these knife techniques. They're nonsense. And he says, yeah, I know. And I said, well, okay, I mean, you're my senior. You always told me they're there to teach us principles, And he just sat. I mean, I remember this vividly. And he said, I agree. We can't teach that stuff anymore. Because it was garbage. Mm-hmm. And so what? So I learned to, an X block and bring it down into the femoral and rip it up, And as the person bends over going, oh my God, I'm bleeding, I do a double hand strike to his neck. And as he's standing there in shock because I've hit his, I don't know what, but you probably have a name for it on the back side of the neck. I come up with a full body, wham. And I think American Kempo used to do it with a fist up, and it would come up like that, which was nonsense because it just never hit the knuckles right. So I just went to a kind of a slap, boom. I just wham. That's still a stupid knife technique, and if you really think that's going to work, you're a moron, And if you outrank me in Kempo, which is I doubt, nonetheless, you're still a moron. That's just nonsense. And the more we teach that stuff, and I don't know where you are with this. If you open a studio, I hope you open a gym instead. The more we teach this stuff without pressure testing, the more the wrong we are, and the more liable we should be when somebody gets stabbed and messed up and raped and whatever. Well, they should come back to you as the dojo instructor and say, what the hell were you teaching me? Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you this. When I first started bouncing,
that's a good point. Did it work? Your stuff work?
Well, I think I was too nice. That was my first mistake. I was too nice in some of my interactions, but I ended up going home and going through my curriculum and going crap.
Right.
Oh, no,
right.
That's good. That one works.
Yeah.
And so
the first half of that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and that's why I believe that everybody who studies a martial art, Shannon and I talked about this a little bit, that sparring, maybe not tournament stuff. I think everybody should be in a fight.
Right.
If you're going to be a martial artist, you should be in a fight.
There should be a beat down at some point that you figure out.
And
I agree.
Because you'll realize,
right,
oh my God, this is crap.
Right.
Or you'll realize that really worked. And you
Right.
kind of realize what's real and what's not.
You know-
And a lot of and I think a lot of nowadays, people are getting to black belt, and martial arts has looked more at a sport. I look at more as
Right.
self-defense, and that's just my concept
Right.
based on somebody
Sure,
else's, and that's why I like to dig on Taekwondo, because
Yeah.
it is a sport, and,
Right.
and there's some really talented Taekwondoists out there,
Right.
but there's a lot of stuff that sport doesn't work in the real world.
Right.
Well,
and even some of our supposed reality stuff. And I'm a big fan of those
I agree.
versus videos.
Mm-hmm.
The early UFC videos. Wow, they all look the same.
Yeah.
And the guys who were really fighting, who had been fighting, who had pressure tested their stuff like you, throwing some things out, keeping some things.
Yeah.
Who maybe had focused on principle, and I think I can go with principle. There's certain things that I've learned that still hold real for me. Not the least of which is the thought that I don't have to fight you. I can back up. I can say, I'm out. You're good.
Avoidance is the best technique.
Call the police.
Yeah.
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 That those are valuable things. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there ought to be a place in dojos where, since we're not regulated, we self-regulate. I'm a big fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
We self-regulate and begin pressure testing our stuff. I like that word. That's a JITS word, I think. Do you follow the Aikidoist who gave up all his Aikido and is now I'll send you a link.
Yeah.
And now is in a JITS studio. And occasionally some of his videos, he'll attempt to make an Aikido technique. I'm a fan of Aikido. I'm a fan of O-sensei.
Beautiful art.
What?
Beautiful
art. Yeah. And it's mystical and wonderful in every way, except that, wow, some of that stuff doesn't work if your person's resisting. Yeah. But I use Aikido principles.
Mm-hmm.
For a wrist lock, you grab my wrist, I'm always going to shoot chi out my fingers, although I'm not a chi fan.
Yeah.
Because that works.
Yeah.
I don't know why. If I'm doing a release, yeah, absolutely. So there are principles everywhere, I guess. And you got to make it your own, which is something Stan, I think, gave me. And it's certainly something in the Kempo thing. It was Ed Parker's intention that my techniques wouldn't look the same as your techniques.
Right.
There's a new nonsense principle in the Kempo discussion. Fortunately, this is late enough in your DojoCast that nobody will listen to this part. But it's saying that, hey, the Kempo forms were the forms that are supposed to be exactly the same because they pass on principles, if I may, bullshit. And the Kempo techniques are meant to be self-expressive. No, they're all the same. And if you listen to the ancients, the guys who were like, I'm second generation, the first generation guys, they'll tell you that much of the material that was in the art was there to prolong the paying period. Why are there 3 degrees of brown belt? Because as a black belt, you don't stay around anymore.
Yeah.
I got that from Dave Hebler, my teacher. And if anybody knows, Dave Hebler is probably the most senior, other than Chuck, what's his name? And I apologize. The most senior American Kempo person in the world. And he says it was all about keeping students, All right. That's helpful to know.
Yeah.
So what do I do? I never went. When I had my own dojos, we didn't do 3 anymore.
Yeah.
Brown and then black. And if you left, you left.
Yeah. I don't do stripes at all.
Yeah.
Just solid colors.
Well, I do it on the intermediate and the beginning belts because
Mm-hmm.
you need to keep coming. Not for me, but for you. You need to.
Well, I do.
rewards.
I don't. So like I just do solid belts for ranks, but I do keep like little tab stripes. So there's I think 5 colors I do.
Okay.
And so it's like, if you're proficient with your kata, you get a yellow belt, you
Right.
get a yellow stripe.
Right.
If you know your fundamentals, you get or like, locks, kicks, whatever
Sure.
it is. You
Right.
get a green stripe. If you know your pressure points, you get a blue stripe, So it's, and then that kind of, that's twofold. One, because Americans like to see
Right.
progress.
It's America.
And, and for me, the instructor, I can remember
Right.
just by looking
There
at
is
your
that.
spread, I can say, oh, this is
Yeah.
what you know.
Right.
And then if you've got all of them, then I go, okay,
Right.
then you should be ready to test.
Right. Yeah. I hadn't thought about it. It's a mnemonic for us because we can't remember.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, and,
I like the TKD thing too of you show up and you get your yellow belt. And I don't mean that as a downer. I just mean it's easier to get a yellow belt in in Taekwondo than it would be, say, in Kempo or one of the obscure Okinawan arts and so on, where you're expected to know something. It says your effort is valuable. It's recognized. Here's your first promotion. Atta girl, So I was easy on the early belts, and then by the time you reached green, I wanted to see some badass stuff. You needed to be at least capable of doing at least one badass moment in the midst of your test.
Right.
Brown, you should be dangerous. Black, now it's my reputation. So yeah.
Right on.
My senior most black belt, to honor him, is the lieutenant of the SWAT team in Reno.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm
awesome.
honored by that. Yeah, he was dating my daughter at the time when I was training him. Yeah, and they both got up to, I don't remember what, brown or whatever. And then one of my teachers was staying with me, and I had him teach him to black.
Yeah.
And when he went to academy, he just beat the shit out of everybody. And it was like a golden moment for me.
Yeah.
Because I realized not only had I instilled in this person character, but I'd also made him capable. And that's precious.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that is a great ending.
Right.
I think we've been doing this for, by the looks of it, almost 2 hours.
Okay.
So, but
Thanks.
It's been an awesome conversation.
My pleasure, man. Yeah.
It's been a great conversation.
Yeah.
So I thank
You're
you,
good at
sir.
this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
And if you have stuck around this long, I thank you. Greg thanks you.
Yep.
If you are not a subscriber, please do subscribe. Hit the button down there. Hit the bell if you want. And
take some lessons.
Yeah, take some lessons. You can find us online, all that kind of good stuff.
And
all right.
My writing website is Gregg Townsley, GreggTownsley.com.
And we'll put that in the description below.
Awesome.
All right. Very good. And
Thanks.
we are out.
Yep.